Okay, now I'm going to show you the resisted range of motion. For this one, we're going to do a wrist extension with a radial deviation. We're going to have the patient seated, forearm, going to have them put in supination. Wrist is going to be extended. Elbows flexed, supination, wrist is extended. We are doing the 5-5, which is basically gravity against gravity and with resistance. So first, I would stabilize the forearm proximal to the wrist. Go ahead, and I would just have them do the movement. Then at that point, I will go ahead and I want to apply my resistance. Now, what we're doing here with the movement is we are flexing and going to a radial deviation. So we're also bringing the hand towards the radius, up in the direction towards the thumb. You want to keep the fingers and the thumb relaxed. Try to remind them as much as possible. You're going to palpate the wrist line. And you're going to palpate within that second web space on the radius side of the palmaris longus. So you're palpating one of the flexors. Okay? And so now for the part where you want to do the resistance, and this is where you're going to palpate the flexor carpi radialis, which comes across here, and you're feeling the tendons right here. The therapist is going to apply resistance on the distal to the patient's wrist over the thenar eminence. Now I'm showing it myself. So the thenar eminence, I will be placing my pressure or my resistance like so. As the patient is trying to bring it into flexion and radial deviation, at the same time, with the correct amount of resistance, so it's maximal resistance for them, but they still get full range of motion here, would be extension and ulnar deviation. So I will put my hand and say, go ahead and flex and do radial deviation. And I would rate them a 5 out of 5 because they got full range of motion with max resistance and with gravity. All right, so for the next one would be 2-5, which that is the gravity eliminated version of that test, and there's no resistance. Especially, again, you're seeing the range of motion. So with gravity eliminated. Okay, so the hand's going to have a slight pronation, extended, and an ulnar deviation. Okay, the patient is going to flex and radial deviate the wrist in full range of motion. Here you're going to feel the flexor carpi radialis. So we have on the radialis side, flexor carpi radialis, right inside that web space again. Put your 2 fingers to palpate. As they do that flexion and radial deviation, you feel for those tendons. Okay. We're feeling for the radial side of the palmaris longus. Very nice. And that would be 2-5. No resistance. Hands stay connected to the table. Gravity eliminated. Okay? Okay. Now we're going to do the resisted range of motion for wrist extension, ulnar deviation. All right, so this is the extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, goes across. Extensor muscles. 5-5 is going to be against gravity, and it's going to be with resistance. So we're going to stabilize the forearm proximal to the wrist, fingers relaxed. The movement we're going to have the patient do is we're going to have them extend and ulnar deviate the wrist through full range of motion. So they have full range of motion. I have my hands right here where I actually can feel the extensors. And I'm going to head and have them. This is against gravity, extension, ulnar deviation. We're going towards the pinky, pulling back towards the pinky. Now I can feel those engaging. We're palpating the dorsal aspect of the wrist, proximal to the fifth metacarpal, distal to the ulna. Right by the styloid process. All right. Now for the resistance part of it, because we're feeling for the extensor carpi ulnaris longus and brevis. So for resistance over the dorsal aspect of the fourth and fifth metacarpals, we're going to do wrist flexion is going to be our resistance. So we're trying to do extension and radial deviation. So I'm going to have my hand, and I am going to be trying to gently resist, pushing it to a flexion and a radial deviation, while the client is doing extension and ulnar deviation. They were able to do the full range of motion against the maximum resistance, so it'll be 5 and 5. Pardon me, my knuckles. For 2 and 5 tests, that's gravity eliminated. We're looking again at the extensor carpi ulnaris. Muscle tendon goes across. We're going to stabilize the forearm proximal to the wrist. Gravity eliminated. So for this one, the movement, the patient's going to be sitting. Forearm's going to be slight pronation. Wrist flexed and in radial deviation. We're going to have the patient extend the wrist while the ulnar deviation, with ulnar deviation, all the way through the full range of motion. Have them do that one more time. You can feel that tendon. All right, go palpate the extensor carpi ulnaris on the posterior medial aspect of the proximal carpals, proximal to the ulnar styloid process. And more anterior of it, to be honest. And so for the gravity eliminated, Hannah's following with the table. You can feel that tendon. That'd be a 2-5. All right, that's it. Thank you.